The morning sun rose over New Haven Colony, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. It was a beautiful world, covered in green fields and gentle hills. 12,000 humans called this place home. They had built farms and houses and schools. They had created a peaceful life far from Earth. Commander Daniel Harris stood on the balcony of the military outpost and watched the children walking to school. There were almost 2,000 of them, laughing and playing as they made their way to the central school complex. He smiled at the sight. This was why humanity had reached for the stars. Not for conquest or glory, but for moments like this. For children growing up under alien skies. Free and happy. Dr. Lauren Mitchell walked with her two daughters, Emma and Sophie. Emma was 12 years old and loved reading about alien species. Sophie was only 8 and carried a stuffed bear everywhere she went. Lauren kissed them both at the school gates and watched them run inside with their friends. "Have a good day," she called after them. "I love you." "Love you too, Mom," they shouted back. Lauren had no way of knowing those would be the last words she would ever hear from her. Children. In the governor's office. Nathan Cole reviewed the morning reports. Everything seemed normal. The crops were growing well. The water purification systems were working perfectly. There were no problems to solve, no emergencies to handle. It was just another quiet day on New Haven. None of them knew that death was coming. High above the planet, hidden behind the third moon, a fleet of Varakthi warships waited. The Varakthi were an insectoid species with hard shells and sharp claws. They had built an empire through violence and fear. They believed that strength was the only thing that mattered in the galaxy. The Varakthi had watched humanity for many years. They saw a species with few warships and weak defenses. They saw easy prey. The Galactic Council considered humans to be a minor species, barely worth noticing. The Varakthi agreed. They believed humans would break easily. Warlord Crickstill commanded the strike force. He had killed many enemies in his long life. Today, he would teach these soft humans a lesson they would never forget. "Target the school complex," he ordered. "Kill their young. When they see their children dead, they will surrender. They will beg for mercy." His officers obeyed without question. The first warning came too late. Commander Harris saw the sensor alerts and felt his blood turn cold. Enemy ships were descending through the atmosphere. Dozens of them. He grabbed his communicator and shouted orders, but there was no time. There was never enough time. The Varakthi bombers screamed over the colony at noon, when the children were eating lunch in the school cafeteria. The first bombs fell on the playground. The second wave hit the main building. Fire and smoke filled the air. The ground shook with each explosion. Dr. Mitchell heard the blasts from the medical center. She ran outside and saw the smoke rising from the school. A scream tore from her throat. She ran toward the flames, but strong hands held her back. "You can't go there," someone shouted. "It's too dangerous." "My daughters are in there," she screamed. "Let me go. Let me go." Commander Harris rallied his soldiers and tried to fight back. They shot down 3 enemy bombers, but it made no difference. The Varakthi had already completed their mission. They pulled back into orbit, leaving destruction behind them. When the fires finally died, the rescue teams moved in. What they found broke them. Over 1,400 children lay dead in the ruins. Some had been eating lunch. Some had been playing games. Some had been reading books. Now they were gone. All of them gone. Lauren Mitchell found her daughters buried under a collapsed wall. Emma still held Sophie's hand. The stuffed bear lay nearby, covered in ash. Lauren fell to her knees and gathered her children in her arms. She held them close and rocked back and forth, making sounds that were not quite human. Governor Cole stood in the center of the ruined school and wept. He had promised these families that New Haven would be safe. He had promised them a better life. Now he stood surrounded by the bodies of their children. The Varakthi broadcast the attack across every galactic channel. They showed the burning school. They showed the dead children. They showed the weeping parents. Warlord Crickstill appeared on screen with a message for humanity. "This is what happens to those who are weak," he declared. "Surrender your colonies and serve the Dominion. Refuse, and we will do this to every human world. Your children will burn until none remain." The Galactic Council watched the broadcast. The elder species discussed the situation in calm voices. Some expressed mild disapproval of the Varakthi methods. Others said nothing at all. None of them offered to help humanity. None of them condemned the slaughter of children. They simply watched and waited to see what the weak humans would do. On Earth, Admiral Christopher Hayes sat alone in his office. He had watched the broadcast 3 times. His hands trembled, but not from fear. They trembled from rage so deep and so cold that it burned like ice in his veins. He had a granddaughter, the same age as some of those murdered children. He thought of her smile, her laugh, her small hand reaching for his. Then he thought of her lying dead in the ruins of a bombed school. Admiral Hayes opened his personal terminal and entered a code that only 5 people in the entire human government knew. A classified file appeared on his screen. The words of Prometheus Protocol glowed in red letters. For over a century, humanity had hidden its true strength from the galaxy. They had pretended to be weak. They had built secret shipyards in the dark spaces between stars. They had developed weapons that no other species knew existed. They had prepared for the day when the galaxy would show its true nature. That day had finally come. Admiral Hayes activated the protocol and sent a message to every hidden military base. The message was simple. It contained only 3 words: "Wake them up." Then he leaned back in his chair and whispered to the empty room. "They have no idea what they've done." Across the galaxy, the Varakthi celebrated their easy victory. The Galactic Council returned to their normal business. Everyone assumed that humanity would surrender or die. They were all very, very wrong. 1 week passed after the New Haven massacre. The galaxy waited for humanity to respond. They expected begging. They expected surrender. They expected the weak humans to come crawling to the Galactic Council, asking for protection from the mighty Varakthi. Instead, there was only silence. Every human ship in the galaxy withdrew to home space. Every human colony went dark. Communication stopped. Trade routes closed. It was as if humanity had simply disappeared. The Varakthi laughed at this response. Warlord Crickstill told his officers that the humans were hiding like frightened animals. He ordered his fleet to prepare for the final conquest. Soon, he said, all human worlds would belong to the Dominion. On the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Derek Lynn requested permission to address the Assembly one final time. The Council members granted his request. They expected him to beg for help. They expected tears and desperation. They were curious to watch Ambassador Lynn walk to the center of the Great Chamber. Representatives from 100 species watched him with cold eyes. Some looked bored. Others looked amused. None showed any sympathy for humanity's loss. Lynn stood straight and tall. His voice was calm and steady. He did not beg. He did not plead. He simply spoke the truth. 1 week ago, the Varakthi murdered over 1,400 human children. They bombed a school during lunchtime. They killed boys and girls who had done nothing wrong. They broadcast this slaughter across the galaxy as a warning. He paused and looked around the chamber. And you did nothing. You watched our children die, and you did nothing. Some of you even seemed entertained by our grief. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few began to speak, but Lynn raised his hand. I am not here to ask for your help. That time has passed. I am here to say goodbye. And I am here to tell you this. Remember what you chose to do today. Remember that you stood by while innocents were slaughtered. Remember it well." He turned and walked out of the chamber. He did not look back. Council Zither of the Varani watched the human ambassador leave. The Velrani were an ancient species, known for their wisdom and their ability to see patterns that others missed. Zither felt a strange unease in his heart. Something about the humans' calmness bothered him. A species that had just lost 1,400 children should not be this composed. Unless they were planning something. On Earth, President Megan Torres addressed the leaders of the United Earth government in a secret session. Her face was hard as stone. Her voice was quiet but filled with iron. "The galaxy has shown us who they really are," she said. "They watched our children burn and did nothing. They expect us to surrender or die. They believe we are weak." She looked at Admiral Hayes, who stood beside her. "Show them the truth." Admiral Hayes nodded and activated a holographic display. The image showed a map of space that none of the leaders had ever seen before. Hidden between the stars, in places no one had thought to look, were hundreds of secret installations, shipyards, weapons factories, training facilities, all of them built in complete secrecy over the past century. "When humanity first entered the galaxy," Hayes explained, "we quickly learned that we were surrounded by predators. Every species we met saw us as prey. We realized that showing our true strength would make us a target. So we hid it. We pretended to be weak. We let them underestimate us." The display changed to show ship designs that looked nothing like humanity's public fleet. These vessels were larger, faster, and far more deadly. They carried weapons that could tear through any known defense system. "We have 8,000 warships ready to launch," Hayes continued. "Our technology is at least 50 years ahead of galactic standard. We have been preparing for this moment since the day we met our first alien species." President Torres stood up. "The Prometheus Protocol is now active. We will not rest until every being responsible for the deaths of our children has faced justice. This is not revenge. This is a reckoning." The leaders voted unanimously to support the military action. Across human space, the call went out for volunteers. The military expected thousands to answer. Millions came instead. Dr. Lauren Mitchell was among the first to volunteer. She had buried her daughters 3 days after the attack. She had stood over their small graves and made them a promise. She would honor their memory. She would make sure no other mother ever felt this pain. She reported to the nearest recruitment center and asked to serve as a field medic. The officer in charge looked at her file and saw that she was one of the survivors from New Haven. He asked if she was sure about her decision. "I have never been more sure of anything in my life," she answered. She was not alone. Parents who had lost children, brothers who had lost sisters, friends who had lost friends. They came from every colony, from every city, from every corner of human space. Their grief had transformed into something cold and hard, an unbreakable dot deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon. Ancient doors began to open. They had been sealed for over a century, waiting for this moment. Light flooded into the vast caverns, revealing rows upon rows of warships. Their hulls gleamed with dark metal. Their weapons hummed with barely contained power. One by one, the ships came alive. Engines roared. Systems powered up. Crews took their stations. The fleet began to rise from its hiding place, like a beast waking from a long sleep. Counselor Zither received an intelligence report from his observers near human space. The report contained sensor readings that made no sense. Massive energy signatures were appearing where nothing should exist. Ships were emerging from locations that every galactic survey had marked as empty. He studied the data for a long time. Then he called an emergency meeting with the other Volray elders. "I have made a terrible mistake," he told them. "We all have. The humans were never weak. They were never helpless. They were waiting. They were hiding their true nature from us." He showed them the sensor readings, and now they are coming. The elders looked at the data with growing horror. The number of ships, the energy output, the technology readings. It was impossible. It was terrifying. It was very, very real. "What do we do?" one elder asked. Zither shook his head slowly. "We pray that we are not on their list of enemies. And we hope that when this is over, there is still a galaxy left for us to live in." In the darkness of space, the human fleet gathered. 8,000 warships, each one a testament to human ingenuity and human determination. They formed up in perfect formation and turned toward Varakthi. Space. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the flagship and watched. The stars streaked past. They wanted to see what humanity could do, he said quietly. Now they will. 3 weeks after the massacre, the human fleet arrived at the border of Varakthi space. They did not sneak in quietly. They did not hide their approach. They came in full force, with every ship visible on every sensor in the region. The Varakthi border outpost at Desek Prime detected them first. The officer on duty stared at his screens and felt his shell grow cold. He counted the enemy vessels once, twice, 3 times. The number did not change. Over 8,000 warships were heading straight toward him. He sent an urgent message to Warlord Krikstal. The message was simple. The humans are coming. There are so many of them. Krikstal received the report and laughed. He still believed that human ships were weak and poorly armed. He ordered the border fleet to engage and destroy the enemy. 500 Varakthi warships moved to intercept the human force. Captain Ryan Peters commanded the human flagship Retribution. He was a quiet man with gray eyes and steady hands. He had served in the human military for 20 years. He had trained for this moment his entire career, even when he thought it would never come. Enemy fleet approaching, his tactical officer reported. 500 vessels. They are powering weapons. Peters nodded calmly. All ships, prepare for combat. Let them fire first. Then show them what we can do. The Varakthi opened fire at maximum range. Their plasma cannons sent bright green bolts streaking across space. The shots hit the human shields and disappeared without effect. The quantum shield arrays absorbed the energy like water soaking into sand. The Varakthi commander felt the first hint of fear. He ordered his ships to fire again. Again, the human shields held without any sign of stress. "Return fire," Captain Peters ordered. The human fleet unleashed its weapons. Kinetic devastator cannons fired projectiles at incredible speeds. Faster than light missiles appeared inside Varakthi formations without warning. Energy beams cut through Varakthi hulls like hot knives through butter. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, not a single Varakthi ship remained. 500 vessels had been reduced to floating, wreckage and drifting bodies. The human fleet had not lost a single ship. Admiral Hayes watched the battle results from his command center. He felt no joy, no satisfaction. Only a cold determination to continue. "Send the recording to the Galactic Council," he ordered. "Let them see what humanity can do when our children are murdered." On the council station, the elder species watched the battle footage in stunned silence. They saw the Varakthi fleet disappear in minutes. They saw human technology that should not exist. They saw a species they had dismissed as weak completely destroy a superior. Enemy force. Councillor Zither tried to contact Admiral Hayes directly. He wanted to negotiate to find a peaceful solution before more blood was spilled. The human admiral accepted his communication request. "Admiral Hayes," Zither said carefully, "I urge you to show restraint. The Varakthi have learned their lesson. Further violence will only create more suffering. Hayes looked at the alien diplomat with eyes like frozen steel. Restraint? He replied, Counselor, restraint ended when they targeted our children. We offered the galaxy peace. We asked only to live and grow and raise our families. The Varakthi answered with the blood of innocence. And your council watched and did nothing. Zither tried to speak, but Hayes continued. We are not interested in your advice. We are not interested in your negotiations. We will stop when justice is complete. Not one moment before. The communication ended. The human fleet advanced deeper into Varakthi territory. Every military base they encountered was destroyed. Every warship that challenged them was turned to scrap metal. The Varakthi had never faced an enemy like this. They had never imagined that such an enemy could exist. Warlord Crystal finally understood the terrible mistake he had made. The humans had not been weak. They had been hiding. For over a century, they had built weapons and ships in secret, preparing for the day when the galaxy would threaten their children. That day had come. And now the Varakthi would pay the price. Crystal gathered every ship in the Dominion. He pulled forces from every colony, every outpost, every patrol route. The largest fleet in Varakthi history assembled to defend the homeworld. 3,000 warships stood ready to fight. Dr. Lauren Mitchell served on a medical ship that followed behind the main fleet. She treated wounded soldiers between battles, though there were far fewer casualties than anyone had expected. Human shields and armor were simply too strong for Varakthi weapons. One night, she sat with a young soldier who had been injured when a console exploded during combat. He was barely 20 years old, with fear in his eyes. Doctor, he said quietly, are we doing the right thing? All this killing. Is it worth it? Lauren thought of her daughters. She thought of Emma's curious mind and Sophie's gentle heart. She thought of them holding hands in death, buried under the ruins of their school. We are not fighting for revenge, she told him. We are fighting so that no species in this galaxy ever considers harming human children again. We are teaching them a lesson that they will remember for 1,000 years. She held his hand gently. Our children were innocent. They did not deserve what happened to them. But we will honor their memory by making sure it never happens again. To any human child, ever. The young soldier nodded slowly. He understood. Human ground forces landed on Varakthi colony worlds and captured military installations with terrifying speed. They wore exoskeleton combat suits that made them stronger and faster than any Varakthi soldier. They used tactical AI systems that predicted enemy movements before they happened. The Varakthi tried every strategy they knew. Ambush, traps, suicide attacks. Nothing worked. The humans adapted to every tactic, overcame every obstacle, defeated every defense. News of the human advance spread across the galaxy. Species that had once mocked humanity now watched in silence. Some quietly withdrew their forces from human trade routes. Others sent secret messages to Earth, expressing their sympathy for the New Haven victims and their desire for peaceful relations. Admiral Hayes ignored these messages. He would deal with the rest of the galaxy later. Right now, only one thing mattered. The fleet approached the Varakthi homeworld of Krixvara. Billions of Varakthi lived there. Their entire civilization had grown from this single planet. Now human ships filled the space around it, blocking out the stars. Hayes opened a channel to all human forces. His voice was calm, but filled with cold fire. They wanted to see humanity's true power. They wanted to know what we could do. Now they will learn. All ships, prepare for final assault. The fleet moved into attack position. On the planet below, the Varakthi looked up at the sky and saw death waiting for them. The reckoning had arrived. The human fleet surrounded the Varakthi homeworld like a ring of steel. 8,000 warships blocked every escape route. Weapons charged and ready. Soldiers prepared for the final battle. The moment of reckoning had arrived. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the flagship and looked at the blue-green planet below. Billions of Varakthi lived on that world. Families, workers, children. He thought of New Haven. He thought of 1400 human children dead in the ruins of their school. Part of him wanted to burn it all. Part of him wanted to make the Varakthi suffer as humanity had suffered. Part of him wanted revenge so complete that no trace of the Dominion would remain. But he was not a monster. He was a human being. And human beings had to be better than their enemies. Begin the assault on military targets only, he ordered. Civilian areas are off limits. Repeat, civilian areas are off limits. The attack began. Human ships bombarded Varakthi defense stations and military bases. Ground forces landed near key strategic locations. The planetary defenses, once considered the strongest in the Dominion, crumbled under the human assault. Warlord Crickstall led the final defense from the capital city. He had gathered his best soldiers around him. He knew he could not win. He had known it since the moment he saw the human fleet appear in orbit. But he would not surrender. He would die fighting, as a true Varakthi warrior should. Captain Peters led the assault on the capital. His forces moved through the streets with careful precision. They destroyed military targets and captured enemy soldiers, but they did not harm civilians who stayed out of the fighting. Crickstall made his last stand in the Central Command building. He fought with all his strength, killing several human soldiers before a blast from an energy rifle ended his life. He died with his claws raised, refusing to admit defeat even in death. With the warlord dead, the Varakthi resistance began to collapse. Soldiers surrendered by the thousands. Weapons were dropped. Fighting stopped across the planet, but the war was not over yet. The hardest decision still lay ahead. Captain Peters received intelligence reports about the location of Varakthi nursery chambers. Deep underground bunkers where Varakthi young were raised until they were old enough to survive on the surface. Thousands of Varakthi children, helpless and innocent. Some human officers gathered in the command center to discuss what to do. Their faces were hard with anger and grief. Many had lost friends or family members at New Haven. All of them carried the memory of murdered children in their hearts. "We should destroy the nurseries," one officer said. "They killed our children. Let them feel what that is like." "An eye for an eye," another agreed. "That is justice. That is what they deserve." Dr. Lauren Mitchell was present at the meeting. She had been treating wounded soldiers nearby when she heard the argument. She walked into the command center and asked permission to speak. "You all know who I am," she said quietly. "You know what I lost at New Haven." The officers fell silent. Everyone knew about the doctor who had buried her 2 daughters. Everyone knew about her grief. Emma was 12 years old. She wanted to be a scientist. She dreamed of studying alien life forms. Sophie was 8. She carried a stuffed bear everywhere. She called it Captain Fuzzy. Lauren's voice broke, but she continued. "They died holding hands. My beautiful girls died holding hands in the ruins of their school. I found them like that. I held their bodies and I screamed until my voice was gone." Tears ran down her face, but her eyes were steady. "I want the Varakthi to suffer. I want them to feel the pain I feel every single day. I want them to burn." She took a deep breath. "But if we do what they did, we become what they are." Our children died because the Varakthi saw no value in innocent life. They believed that killing children was acceptable. That is what made them monsters. She looked at each officer in turn. "If we destroy those nurseries, we prove them right. We prove that all species are the same. We prove that there is no goodness in the galaxy, only different levels of cruelty." She wiped her eyes. My daughters would not want this. They would not want their deaths to be an excuse for killing other children. They were kind and good and gentle. They believed in being better. I will not dishonor their memory by becoming the thing that destroyed them. The command center was completely silent. No one spoke. No one moved. Admiral Hayes had been listening from a secure communication channel. He made his decision. The nurseries will not be touched, he announced. Military targets only. Varakthi, young and civilians, are to be protected. This is a direct order. Some officers looked relieved. Others looked disappointed. But all of them obeyed. Human forces secured the capital city and captured the Queen Mother, supreme ruler of the Varakthi Dominion. She was brought before Admiral Hayes in the central government building. Her guards had been disarmed. Her empire had fallen. She stood alone before the human commander, waiting for death. Hayes looked at her for a long moment. Then he ordered his soldiers to bring a display screen. He showed her the recordings from New Haven, the bombs falling on the school, the children screaming, the parents weeping over small bodies. The Queen Mother watched in silence. Her compound eyes reflected the images of burning buildings and dead children. Her claws twitched, but she did not look away. "You ordered this," Hayes said quietly. "You approved the attack on our children. You broadcast their deaths as a warning to us." The Queen Mother said nothing. "I have the power to destroy your entire species," Hayes continued. "I have the weapons, the ships, the soldiers. I could burn every Varakthi world. I could wipe your people from existence. No one would stop me. No one could stop me." He stepped closer to her. "But I will not do that. We found your nurseries. We found your children. And we did not touch them. They are safe. They will remain safe." The Queen Mother looked confused. She did not understand. "Why?" she asked. "We killed your young. Why would you spare ours?" Hayes met her eyes. "Because we are not like you. We do not murder children. We protect them. All children. Even the children of our enemies." He turned away from her. "You will live with this knowledge. You will remember that humanity had the power to exterminate your species and chose mercy. Not because you deserved it, but because our children would have wanted us to be better than you." The Queen Mother fell to her knees. For the first time in her long life, she felt shame. Real, crushing shame. "We were wrong about you," she whispered. "We thought you were weak. We thought you had no strength." Hayes looked back at her. "Our strength was never in our weapons. It was in our hearts. It was in our ability to remain human, even when facing monsters." He walked out of the chamber. "We fight to protect," he said, "even from ourselves." 6 months had passed since the Varakthi surrender. The galaxy had changed forever. The Varakthi Dominion no longer existed. Human forces had dismantled their military and reduced their fleet to a small self-defense force. They were forbidden from building warships or weapons of mass destruction. They were required to pay reparations to the families of New Haven for the next 100 years. The Queen Mother remained alive, but she was no longer a ruler. She had become a witness to history, forced to travel to other worlds and tell the story of what her people had done. She spoke of the murdered children. She spoke of human mercy. She spoke of her own shame. It was her punishment, and it was worse than death. Ambassador Derek Lynn returned to the Galactic Council chamber for the first time since the war began. The Great Hall was silent when he entered. Representatives from 100 species watched him with very different eyes than before. There was no mockery now, no condescension, only respect and fear. Lynn walked to the center of the chamber and stood where he had stood 6 months ago. His voice was calm and measured. "You all watched the events of the past months," he said. "You saw what happened to the Varakthi. You saw what humanity can do when our children are threatened. He paused and looked around the chamber. We did not ask for this war. We did not seek conquest or glory. We wanted only to live in peace, to raise our families, to build a future among the stars. The Varakthi denied us that. They murdered our children and expected us to submit. His voice grew harder. And you, the Galactic Council, watched it happen. You did nothing to help us. You did nothing to condemn the slaughter of innocents. You assumed we were weak and unimportant. He let those words hang in the air. Now you know the truth. Humanity is not weak. We have never been weak. We simply chose not to show our strength until we were forced to use it. He took a step forward. But there is something more important than our military power. Something you should remember above all else. When we had the chance to destroy the Varakthi completely, we did not. When we found their children, we protected them. We had every reason to seek revenge. We chose mercy instead. The council members shifted uncomfortably. That is who we are. Humanity does not murder children. Humanity protects the innocent, even the innocent of our enemies. He pointed at the assembled representatives. Remember this lesson. Remember it well. Humanity will never start a war. But we will finish every war that is forced upon us. And when we win, we will show mercy to those who do not deserve it. That is our nature. That is our strength. He turned and walked toward the exit. Choose your actions carefully. We are watching. After his departure, the council chamber erupted in discussion. Several species immediately sent messages to Earth, requesting formal alliance treaties. Others withdrew their ambassadors from formerly hostile positions. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted completely. On Earth, President Megan Torres addressed humanity in a public broadcast. We have won the war, she said. But victory brings responsibility. We must now build a peace that will last for generations. We must show the galaxy that humanity stands for justice, for protection, for hope. Our children did not die so that we could become conquerors. They died teaching us what we are willing to fight for. Admiral Hayes retired from active military service. He had led humanity through its darkest hour and its greatest triumph. He had faced impossible choices and made the right decisions. Now he wanted only peace. In his final address to the fleet, he spoke simply. We showed the galaxy our strength. We showed them weapons and ships that no one believed we possessed. But that was not our true power. He looked at the thousands of soldiers who had served under his command. Our true power was our ability to remain human, even in our darkest hour. Our enemies murdered children and expected us to respond with equal cruelty. We refused. We chose to be better. That choice, more than any weapon, is what makes humanity strong. On New Haven, the rebuilding continued. New homes rose from the ruins. New farms spread across the green hills. Life returned to the colony that had suffered so much. A memorial stood at the center of the colony where the school had once been. White stone walls carried the names of every child who had died in the attack. 1,400 names. 1,400 lives cut short. 1,400 futures that would never be done. Dr. Lauren Mitchell visited the memorial on the 6th-month anniversary of the attack. She brought flowers for her daughters, Emma and Sophie. Their names were carved into the stone, side by side, just as they had died. She stood there for a long time, remembering. The pain had not gone away. It would never go away completely, but it had changed. The sharp agony had become a dull ache, always present but no longer overwhelming. She had founded a charity after the war. The Mitchell Foundation supported orphaned children across human space. She traveled to colonies and schools, helping families heal from trauma and loss. It was her way of honoring Emma and Sophie. It was her way of making their deaths mean something. A group of children ran past the memorial, laughing and playing. They were too young to remember the attack. They knew only that this was a special place, a place where heroes were remembered. Lauren watched them play and felt tears on her cheeks. Not tears of grief this time, but tears of hope. Life continued. Children grew. The future remained bright despite all the darkness that had come before. Counselor Zither wrote in his personal journal that evening. His words captured what many in the galaxy now understood. I have studied countless species across thousands of years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have witnessed great wars and terrible atrocities. But I have never encountered a species quite like humanity. He paused, thinking carefully about what to write next. They possessed the capacity for terrible violence. They built weapons that could destroy worlds. They hid their strength for over a century, waiting for the moment when they would need to use it. He continued writing. But that is not what makes them remarkable. What makes them remarkable is their restraint, their mercy, their unshakable belief that protecting the innocent matters more than punishing the guilty. He set down his pen. The galaxy now understands something important. Harming human children awakens something ancient and unstoppable within them. But even in their rage, even in their grief, they remember who they are. They remain human. A new school opened on New Haven that spring. Children filled its halls, learning and growing under the protection of patrol ships that circled overhead. They carried the hopes of an entire species on their small shoulders. Dr. Mitchell attended the opening ceremony. She watched the children file into their classrooms, their faces full of curiosity and joy. She thought of Emma and Sophie. She thought of the future they would never see. But she also thought of all the futures that remained possible. All the children who would grow up safe because humanity had shown the galaxy what it meant to threaten their young. All the lives that would be lived in peace because the galaxy had learned its lesson. She smiled through her tears and whispered to herself. Humanity had revealed its true power to the galaxy. It was not their weapons. It was not their technology. It was their love for their children and their unbreakable will to protect them. She looked up at the sky, where stars sparkled in the daylight. The galaxy would never forget.